Welcome to Scorched Earth. This is going to be a general reading for the month of April for the sign of Virgo, Sun, Moon and Ascendant. If you don't know what your Moon or Ascendant signs are, have a look in the description box below. There's a link down there that will help you get your free birth chart. And then you should come back and watch the videos for your Moon and Ascendant signs, because they'll give you a better idea of what's going on with you overall, as opposed to just with your Sun sign. So, thank you as ever to everyone who has subscribed and continued to subscribe. Liked, shared, commented, sent me messages, donated to the channel. Wow, that's huge. I'm grateful for every last one of you. And I hope that you're all well at the moment. Now, I tried to do this reading once already today, and I had to bail on it because I was just really tired. I am still really tired, but I'm hoping that my little rest, I basically sat on the floor and looked at Facebook for a little bit, just bringing the brain down, will be sufficient for me to pull out some coherent reading for you. So, now I've burbled on with all that, let's get some cards for you, Virgo. I have 3 cards for Virgo. How about Virgo? First card that you have is the High Priestess. I like to see that. That's Major Arcana. It's a card for Pisces for me. Number 2. Another card for Virgo, please. Oh, Virgo. Got the 9 of Swords in your present energy. It's uncomfortable energy. Need out, but what's coming towards Virgo, please, for April? What's coming towards Virgo for April? 8 of Swords. Okay, well, forewarned is forearmed and all that. At the bottom of the deck, we've got the 7 of Swords and the 9 of Wands. So you're feeling in a bit of a defensive frame of mind, I think. And there's a sense that you feel that there's deception around you. But with the 9 of Swords here, we'll get into it, but it might not be necessarily so, just because you feel like it might be. So let's get some clarifiers. I'm going to use the John Bauer to clarify, apparently. Let's give these a little shuffle. Feeling quite spaced out at the moment. Sometimes that lends itself quite well to reading. Other times that just makes your brain a bit of a foggy place, and obviously doesn't. At this point, I'm not quite sure which way it is. We'll have a look. So, why is the High Priestess here for Virgo, please? We've got the Wheel of Fortune. It's a card of Sagittarius, number 10. Where's the High Priestess here for Virgo, please? Hello. And the Justice card, Libra, number 11 in the Major Arcana. So, present energy, 9 of Swords. Why is this here for Virgo, please? Got the Ace of Wands. That's another card of Sagittarius. About the 9 of Swords, please. And the World card, number 21. About the 8 of Swords. There's the 8 of Swords here. Oh, that one kind of tumbled out. There's you, Queen of Pentacles. About the 8 of Swords, please. And the 7 of Pentacles. Okay. Alright, I see where that's going. At the bottom of this deck, we've got the 10 of Swords, which is a really uncomfortable energy to have. That's the 8, 9, and the 10 of Swords you've got there, Virgo. Ten of Swords talks about betrayal and humiliation and hitting rock bottom, actually. Fuck, so we've got the 7, the 8, the 9 and the 10 here as well. The 10 and the 7 being the shadow cards at the bottom of the deck. Alright Virgo, let's talk this through. So the first card that you've got is the High Priestess. Right? Card of Pisces in the Major Arcana. And this is in your recent past position. It's a card that talks about secrets sometimes. Yeah, it talks about the internal world. Like, the High Priestess is the keeper of all knowledge, like, keeper of wisdom, but she doesn't really share what she knows. She's very intuitive and very passive. Like, this is a card of inaction, right? But it's a card of intuition. It's a card of trusting your intuition. And interestingly, in the Crow Tarot, the High Priestess is depicted as having all of the elements on the card as well. We've got a wand there and a cup. There's a sword at the side and there's a pentacle on the moon. And that's really interesting because that makes her the actual counterpart, the magician. And that's often left off tarot cards in a way that I don't really understand, because she is every bit as powerful as the magician. It's just that the magician works with, manifesting outwardly. The High Priestess has got all the answers inside, but she doesn't volunteer them often. Now, the two cards that you've got to clarify, another 2 major arcana, right? The Wheel of Fortune and Justice. Now, the fact that the major arcana, like, you've only got one more on the table and it's in your present energy, are all in your recent past, makes me feel like there've been some fairly dramatic changes around you. Like, we haven't got the Tower. Tower's not here. But there's a similar sense of shift about this. Right? The Wheel of Fortune has been coming out for a lot of people. In fact, like, the cards of Sagittarius have been coming out for a lot of people across all of the readings for about the last 3 or 4 weeks now. And if you don't have a Sagittarian in your midst, it seems like what it's talking about is a healing of the collective, broadly. Because that's what Sagittarius does. It's, the wounded warrior, learning lessons from wounding and moving on. And you are wounded. There's no doubt about that. But there's a lesson here, and I don't know if you've perceived that that's what it was. This card's absolutely fascinating. There's a hooded figure stood in the middle of a circle with like a shepherd's crook, and he's got his hand up like this, and he seems to be directing things. He is turning the wheel, and the wheel is made of people, right? this wheel down here by his feet, those are all individual little people, right? Divine orchestration, things being moved around, right? And possibly in such a way as they don't even perceive that this person is doing the directing. But the thing that's really pulling my eye more than anything else is this blackness beyond the wheel. Yeah. And what I'm getting a sense of, what I'm starting to feel quite strongly, is that there's been a shift, a big shift. But you're looking forwards, right? You're looking at the darkness, and it's like the future, and what the future holds is as yet completely unavailable to you. You've got no sense of what the future holds for you. All you can see is this blackness here. There's no shapes to make out here at all. Huh. Yeah, interestingly, although this looks like a circle, for the first time ever, I think there's a possibility that this is actually a spiral. it's hard to tell from the picture, but it looks like there's a line of people headed off into the darkness there. I never noticed that before. But the feeling that I get from the card stands, right? That's what I'm looking at, that blackness up ahead. Right, someone's like, you felt the shift, you saw things change, and now you don't know how to proceed forwards because your way is not illuminated in any way. And then we've got the Justice card, and interestingly enough, we've got that same blackness there, you know. The Justice card talks about, obviously, things that are right and wrong. Sometimes it can talk about legal contracts and stuff like that, you know, divorce, any kind of legal proceedings, contracts, all that sort of thing. But because it's Major Arcana, I tend to see it in a higher kind of sense than that. You know, we're talking about karma, we're talking about karmic contracts, we're talking about karmic debts often. But I'm just staring at this blackness again. And it's almost like this woman here, there's a woman sat on top of the rock and there's a small child addressing her there. She's kind of turning to see what it is he's talking about, right? It's like you were sat on a rock, which you thought was very stable, right? Bit by bit, this rock has been exiting your existence and you're left with the blackness again. Yeah. This wheel has turned and I'm looking at the blackness where nothing is illuminated. Why is the High Priestess here though? Let's have a look at that. Because I understand the two clarifying cards, I'm just not quite sure how they relate to the High Priestess. Tell me about the High Priestess. Why is the Wheel of Fortune and Justice here? Clarify the High Priestess. Oh, there's one. Page of Swords. Ten of Swords. Why the High Priestess? On the bottom of the deck we've got the Eight of Cups. But these three clarifiers are the Page of Swords, the Ten of Swords again, and the Ten of Wands. So I feel like in your recent past you received some news, and that news brought you to a shuddering halt in a way that you didn't anticipate. You know, these tens all speak of endings, right? We've got all these tens here, right? Every single one of these cards is numbered 10. Right? I feel like the High Priestess card is here because you didn't see this coming, right? This was secret, it was hidden, right? Until it wasn't. And when it wasn't, this is what happened. Yeah. It's left you feeling in a Ten of Swords state, and I mean that's not a comfortable place to be with that. But I feel if it was at the hands of another, because we've got this Page of Swords here. Yeah? This Page of Swords who actually looks like it could be piling an 11th sword into this person. Yeah. I don't think this has been at your hands, this has been at somebody else's. It's like you know there's not really any coming back from this, but you were broadsided by it, you didn't see it coming. But now it's here, you're trying your best to level out, you're trying your best to balance yourself out. You know, kind of pull yourself back from the blackness, but you don't really perceive the way forward. And that explains where we go later on in the reading. The card for your present energy is the Nine of Swords, right? And this is deeply uncomfortable, right? Just as all of the swords are, and you have a lot of swords here, right? The Nine of Swords can indicate grief, depression, insomnia, those things that really keep us awake at night, right? You're not talking about little niggling worries, but if you woke up in the middle of the night, what would be the thing that you would be thinking about? It'd be this, right? Might not necessarily have woken you up, but you're now awake, and this is the thing you're thinking about, right? The composition of this card is really, really interesting. Right? We have the Nine of Swords sort of stacked up in the way that we are accustomed to seeing the Nine of Swords, and I'll get to that in a second. But the way it's composed, right? We have a nest slightly in front of it with a solitary bird sat in it, and this is presumably the dreamer of the card. You know, this is the person, the crow, that is suffering this Nine of Swords energy, but they're stacked in front of the moon. Yeah. See. Wow. And the moon talks about the things that are hidden. It talks about the subconscious more often than not for me. These swords are obstructing your view of the moon, right? They're obstructing your ability to get in touch with those things that are bubbling away underneath. And you're stuck in a grief-stricken energy. It feels grief-stricken to me. And there are two birds sat on the swords. And these could indicate, you know, like we could be looking at the result of a third-party situation, you know, where you've got you at the bottom there, kind of thinking about these two birds being together, right? It's a card of overthinking, right? And when you overthink, you block your intuition. When you overthink, you block your ability to understand your own internal space, right? Now, your internal space got knocked by whatever this situation is here, you know. And this doesn't have to be a romantic reading, you know. You take it as it resonates to you, because there are lots of different ways of interpreting this. It just does feel that somebody, or you feel somebody, slipped the knife in. Well, they didn't slip the knife in; they kind of jabbed it in 10 times and then left you for dead, right? But now, here you are, and you're sat on this, and you are not connected to your intuition. You do not understand your inner space, and you are instead focusing on these swords. Now, the thing with these swords, and I said I would get to it, and here we are, is, broadly speaking, in the tarot, and this isn't a universal rule, but it's often a good rule of thumb. When you see a sword, and it's upright, like here, right? It's an ace, right? It's a gift, right? And it speaks of truth, and it speaks of, you know, clarity of thought and clarity of expression, and, you know, all of those things. It talks about integrity. It talks about honor, right? When the swords are pointing down, usually it means the reverse. So we're looking at things like dishonesty, you know, treacherous behavior, that kind of thing. People who are deliberately obfuscating situations in order to get away with stuff, right? These swords are in a neutral position, right? They're mounted on the wall. And there are 9 of them. That's a decent number of swords, right? But they're all horizontal. They are neither up nor down, right? So this comes down to perception. comes down to your perception, and at the moment you are not thinking clearly. You are not in a state of clarity of thought at all. These swords are getting in the way, right? But what it is that you're worrying about may not have quite as much of a basis in reality as you are concerned that it may have, right? But at the moment you're too close to the situation to be able to really perceive that, yeah? And you're certainly too close to the swords to be able to see the moon properly. Yeah? You kind of need to move the swords out of the way, and you do that by reframing your perspective on a certain situation, right? This is keeping you awake at night, but it might not be anywhere near as bad as you think it is. Possibly, But whether it is or whether it isn't, it comes down to the fact that you're not thinking clearly about it. You are hugely overthinking the situation, and that really needs to stop, right? Because that is very damaging. Right? Not only does it affect your judgment, but it's exhausting. It keeps you awake at night. It stops you from moving forwards in any kind of meaningful way. The two cards that you've got to clarify are the Eight of Wands and the World. Now, the Eight of Wands is the card of Sagittarius, and it talks about communication, right? Which is interesting because the swords as a suit talks about communication. But when you see the Eight of Wands, it's usually like swift incoming communication. Some cards will show the wands going both ways, and it's kind of like that's a conversation. If they're coming in one way, then it's a message coming in or a message going out. Yeah. But it's here underneath your overthinking. Fucking hell. This card's flying all over the world. Yeah. Where's the Eight of Wands here, please? Eight of Wands. The Eight of Wands talks about movement as well as communication. And pulling clarifiers for that, I got the Chariot, that order, the World, and the Nine of Pentacles. The Chariot speaks about movement as well. It's a sense of you wanting to move in a particular direction but feeling restricted for some reason, and I don't really know why. But the World card has come out twice, and that's an ending, right? That's the end of a cycle, and you've been in this kind of approaching the end of a cycle, kind of in the transitional state for a while, right? And there's been a sense of at least some of the collective really resisting the change. Like some of you are embracing it, but a lot of you are not, and a lot of you are very uncomfortable. And then overthinking and over-analysing situations is, I'm sad to say, a typical Virgoan trait. And I do think over the last couple of months, you've been asked to kind of release that a little bit, but it seems like you're tied up in knots with it at the moment because there's a sense of you really wanting to move in a direction, right? You couldn't see what that direction was at one point, back to the blackness. And there's a sense of you wanting to move swiftly and move forwards, by yourself. By yourself. It's what I just heard there. That's what the Chariot speaks about, the self. It's also the card of Cancer. There might be a Cancer involved. But I feel this sudden stop, just as you were broadsided by whatever this was that you didn't see coming. Now you're here and you've got this desperate want to move. But you're being stopped. It's like a seatbelt. and you break the card too far. Like, that's the feeling that I'm getting from it. And it's off the back of this world card. These two world cards. I can feel like you're resisting the ending. You're resisting the end of the cycle. And this is why it's becoming painful. This is why you're overthinking it, right? Because then the next card that you've got is the Nine of Pentacles, and that's the self-sufficiency card, right? It's someone who's independent. It's someone who looks after their own, everything, really, their own resources. Follows the world. So are you trying to move towards this end, or are you trying to move and resist the end because you don't want to come into this Nine of Pentacles energy? I'm not sure. But at the bottom of the deck, we've got the Fool, right? That's your new start. That's there. That's waiting in the wings for you. I'm sure I've said that before, used that very phrase for you before. It's waiting in the wings. Chariot. Why is the Chariot here? Fucking hell. Tell me about the Chariot. Whoa. More swords, right? We've got the Empress in reverse and the Seven of Swords, right? The Seven of Swords talks about deception, but with this particular card, it feels like self-deception, right? You see, she's looking in a mirror, but she's got her eyes closed. This one's like putting on a show of doing, making all the moves towards your ending, but when it comes down to it, not looking yourself in the eye, not looking yourself in the mirror and saying, I'm fucking doing this. It's kind of like, it's like treading water, right? Being seen to be doing all the right things, but your heart not actually being in it. Now, there's something to be said for faking it until you make it. But energetically speaking, a cycle will not close while you continue in that energy, right? You are stalling yourself, whether you realize it or not, right? You really do have to release. But it's come out with the Empress reversed, and the Empress is creative and abundant energy. It's really fertile, when it talks about new beginnings, because, the Empress is often depicted as pregnant, but she births new things into the world. And here, the Empress is reversed. That birthing capacity is stifled, if not completely stopped. And there's a sense here that you don't believe enough in your own ability to do this. This is one of the things that you're overthinking. It's one of the things that's keeping you stuck. It's one of the things that is not bringing this into fruition. The Fool is an excellent card to have after the World, but probably the next best card to see after the World would be the Empress, the right way up, right? Because yes, she's the divine counterpart of the Emperor, but she has got this ability to bring new things into the world. And the other way of reading this is that you are charging forwards, right? This swift movement forwards to be seen to be doing what you think is required to bring the end of the cycle around. But because you don't feel it, because you've got your eyes closed when you're looking in the mirror, it's just out of reach. Like, it's staying there. And I sense fear off this card. A real sense of fear about doing it for yourself. What's coming towards you in April is the Eight of Swords, right? And that's the card of self-sabotage, right? It talks about a lot of things, but self-sabotage is primarily the thing, right? More fucking swords. I've got all these swords here, right? Seven of Swords is twice now. This Seven of Swords and also this Seven. Like, these are all difficult, painful swords cards. The funny thing is that we don't have the Three of Swords though, right? It's almost like what you're resisting now isn't the ending, whatever it was. You seem to have kind of accepted that. Yeah? You've balanced yourself out. What you seem to be resisting is moving forwards by yourself. What seems to be occurring is you overthinking your capacity to make a fresh start on your own. Like, you just don't think that you can do it. For some reason, you don't think that you have it within you to do it, and that is nonsense, Virgo. It is nonsense. I mean, there's nothing here to suggest that it's going to be easy, but it is actually something that you can do. Yeah. There's no sense of loss here for this, right? This is what's come. You know, this is what has occurred before, and it's left you feeling pretty wounded and pretty fucked up. But you're not carrying that with you. This is not what you are getting upset about. What you are getting upset about, what you are overthinking, is this starting again by yourself, in whatever sense that is. Now, this is the card of self-sabotage, because this crow is blindfolded and bound and stuff, but it's not tight. Right? With a bit enough of a wriggle, like, all of those ties would fall off. You know, and then he get his little wings free, his eyes would be free, and he'd be able to maneuver his way through the swords. Right? This is a card of somebody who feels very trapped, without it necessarily being the case. You know, we're starting to see a theme here, Virgo. Right? The perceived danger is far greater than the actual danger. You know, but there's a kind of willful blinding to the facts of the situation, which is what you're experiencing here. And this is the state that you find yourself in April. Now, the two cards to clarify are the Queen of Pentacles and the Seven of Pentacles. And this I find really, really interesting, because the Queen of Pentacles is you, right? That's the card of Virgo in the Earth Court, right? And it's a very capable queen. You know, it's somebody who's nurturing. It's somebody who understands the value of well, you know, the things that are important. She's careful and she's attentive, and of all the queens, I feel like she's the one who's the best mother, because she's pretty practical, right? You know, she's the one whose kids, are always clean and well turned out. Always got a decent meal in their belly, stuff like that. And this doesn't have to be a woman. It's going to be a man equally. But it's that nurturing energy. And for me, she often talks about self-care too, because she's very practically minded, and she understands that you cannot look after other people if you're not looking after yourself. And to Virgo, I do get the impression that you are not looking after yourself at the moment, right? This is what you need to strive for, because what we come back to is this Seven of Pentacles again, right? It came out earlier in the reading, and that is the status quo. Yeah, it's the situation as things stand at the moment, right? And for me, it's usually a card of well, in the standard depiction, there's a chap, and he stood next to what looks like a potato bush, but it's growing pentacles, right? And it used to have kind of brown leaves, and the whole thing kind of looked like it was dying off a little bit. And the man who is leaning on his hoe next to it looks quite concerned about the situation, right? And what he's thinking, we're given to understand, is, do I pull this bush out, clean the soil, replant, start again, or do I continue putting all the care and effort into it and just hope that it gets over it, hope that it can improve, it's like taking a sit rep of the circumstances that you're in at the moment and trying to decide whether to invest or divest, Stay where you are or move. And the funny thing is, because it's come out under the Eight of Swords, so in and of itself, it's already implying that there's some sort of stasis that you are finding yourself in, right? This is basically the same character, actually. Have a look here. Right. And you can see here and here. I think this is here because when you are here, you know where you are, right? That's the long and short of it. Better than the devil you know, right? That's what I'm hearing of this, right? You are keeping yourself willingly stuck because when you are willingly stuck, you at least recognize the situation that you're in, right? You know all the aspects of it, all the facets of it, and even if you need to move, even if there's a desire in you to move, you're afraid to do so. Because it means possibly tackling the unknown, right? Here. Well, this character stood at the edge of a forest looking in, and it looks quite daunting. What's really positive, though, is that we don't have a black space behind these trees, right? Like we did here with these two cards. Yeah, just a void, essentially. There is some sense of what lies behind, right? You can discern shapes, you can see there are other trees. It is actually, to a degree illuminated. It's a bit dark over there, but, What's coming towards you in April is a bit of illumination. But it's difficult to see from this whether it's enough illumination for you to make the leap, to get yourself, out of this Seven of Swords situation that you're in. Yeah, Seven of Pentacles. Right. The bottom of the deck now we've got Temperance, right? Card of Sagittarius again, but it talks about healing, it talks about balancing. It's not being able to pour from an empty cup. And look, that character is pouring from one cup into another and those cups are filled, right? It's a beautiful alchemy that's going on here, but it's healing, right? Healing yourself. The three cards that you've got to clarify, the Five of Swords, the Emperor, and the Wheel of Fortune. This Wheel of Fortune is back out again, one of the first cards and effectively the last card in the reading, right? I'll get to why I think that that's important in a second. But let's have a look at these two here, right? The Emperor is the card of Aries. So it could be that you had a bit of a bust up with an Aries. There's something about broken communication here with an Aries. That's possible. But these have come out to clarify the Seven of Pentacles, which is this state of, do I invest, do I divest? Do I move, do I stay where I am? Right? It's status quo analysis. Keeping yourself stuck with the Eight of Swords. But it feels like you're still completely baffled, Virgo. There are two characters on this card here, and it's this one at the back that I feel is you. The one with their hands up in the head, and I'm just like, what the fuck? There's somebody else here, and they've got some swords. They've got some words to say. They seem to be pretty sorted, but you're just like, ah. And then we've got this Emperor. You know, and it feels like the Emperor is what you have to do, and you know you have to do, and you are not entirely convinced that you can do, is the thing. You know, I just don't think that you know how to do this, except that you do. But you're overthinking the fucking shit out of it, which is what's keeping you stuck, right? And then the Wheel of Fortune. Well, the reason why I feel like this is important is because, like I said at the beginning, right, there's always a sense of a lesson with the Wheel of Fortune, right? And the Wheel of Fortune is sandwiching this entire fucking reading, right? This, in and of itself, is a lesson, right? You're coming towards the end of a cycle, and there were things that you needed to learn, right? But this here, this state that you're in, this that you are experiencing right now, is a lesson too, right? This is something that you need to look at too. And this is going to take a little bit of work from you, because you need to detach. You need to step back a little bit and look at things a little bit more objectively than you are doing at the moment. Because at the moment, your head's a mess. I can feel it. Like, it's difficult for you to keep any kind of coherent train of thought at the moment, because you just keep circling back to the same fucking things. And I don't know what those specific things are, but I know that they are leaving you disempowered, and that bothers me, right? Because this Wheel of Fortune is here, and like I said before, all of this fucking good stuff is waiting for you in the wings once you get on top of this. Now, I know asking a Virgo not to overthink is like, I don't know, asking a bird not to fly. But your healing depends on it, yeah? There's so much available to you, should you, wish to avail yourself of it. But this is, I've done a few readings recently, and there seems to be some level of collective ascension going on for all of the signs that I've read for so far. And I've done a few readings now, I haven't uploaded them all yet. We're all ascending in different ways, right? And for you, this is it. Like, if you are overthinking something, you are not trusting your judgment. You're not aligning yourself with your energy properly. And you're just being mean to yourself. Actually, this is torture, what you're undertaking here, Virgo. And the Queen of Pentacles is here because you need to nurture yourself. If you put all of that energy that you're putting into punishing yourself or feeling bad about whatever it is that's keeping you up at night, if you put that energy into caring for yourself and being kind to yourself and nurturing yourself just a little bit through this difficult period, you'd come on in leaps and bounds. But you don't trust yourself, is the thing. I'm going to pull you some cards of advice, even though I don't usually do these on the monthlies, because I hate to see people suffer, and it really does look like this is what's happening for you at the moment, and because you're stuck in this suffering energy, right? You're just bringing more of this suffering to yourself in April. But the key is to look at it not like, why is this happening to me? But why is this happening for me? What am I trying to learn from this? What is the lesson that I am being shown here? There's some cards of advice for Virgo, please. Advice for Virgo. Some advice for Virgo, please. I giggled because the High Priestess came out, right? That's your first card of advice. That is, connect yourself with your intuition, right? It's Your intuition, right, was once told to me that your intuition is your higher self, or your connection to spirit, right? And that's them kind of whispering in your ear and trying to guide you correctly. And they know better than you, so you should always listen to your gut, to your intuition, to your instincts when they push you in a particular way. You know? You are so divorced from that at the moment. And I feel like actually this disconnect has happened because initially you didn't see this coming, right? Now you don't trust your intuition because your intuition didn't forewarn you about this situation. But you cannot control the behaviour of others. You can only control yourself and your actions and your responses and all those kind of things. And do you know what? Sometimes shit is going to fucking surprise you. Sometimes shit is going to creep up on you. Hell, I'm a fucking tarot reader and a witch, and sometimes shit fucking surprises me too. You know, I see most things come in, but occasionally I don't, and those are the things that really knock me sideways. Not because they're particularly big things, although in your case it does seem like it was, but just the fact that I didn't see it coming beforehand. You know. One more card of advice for Virgo. Yeah. Your intuition isn't broken. Like, this is a situation that was supposed to broadside you, right? That's what these two cards here are telling me, right? This was divinely orchestrated, right? And to a degree, like, it's possible that you signed up for this before you got here into this incarnation, you know, because this is what these karmic contracts are about, right? You signed up for it. It was not something you were supposed to see coming. But that doesn't mean that you should, you know, completely ignore this now, because your intuition's there and it's trying to talk to you, but it's blocked by these swords, right? What was I just saying about controlling yourself, right? This is what the Emperor does. Second time the Emperor's come up, right? The only thing that you control is yourself, your actions, your emotions, you, right? Nothing to do with anyone else. What anybody else does, I'm afraid, is down to them, right? But if you get on top of yourself, right? Get on top of your reactions to things, your emotions to things, you know, the way you do things, the way you plan, the way you strategize, and you're an earth sign, so yeah, kind of like to do a little bit of that, right? You're going to fight a little less and go with the flow a little bit more, you know, because we've got the World card again, right? It's the third time it's come out in the reading. This ending needs to happen, but you need to feel it. You need to submit to it entirely, because at the moment you're resisting it. And because you're resisting, you're making it harder for yourself. This is part of your lesson, right? This in and of itself. I'm sorry, Virgo. It seems like it's really, really hard for you. I hate to see that. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. I haven't decided if I'm going to do an extended for it or not. I'm not even sure what we'd look at, to be honest. But maybe I will. If I do decide to do one, there'll be a link in the description box. You'll be able to see it there. I've got no idea how long this has been running now. Let's see. Oh, 49 minutes. Fucking hell. Right, I'm going to go. See you later, Virgo.